He came to clean the gym floor, not fight in it. To most people there, he was invisible, the man who swept up sweat and blood after others made their glory. But one night, that changed. The MMA coach, known for his arrogance and temper, decided to make a point. He mocked the janitor's silence, his old shoes, and his skin. Then he did something no one expected, he threw him into the ring. Laughter filled the air as cameras rolled. The crowd thought it would be over in seconds. But what they saw next silenced every voice in the room. One hit, that's all it took. Who really had the power that night? And why did a man the world dismissed become the one to teach everyone a lesson they'd never forget? This isn't just about a fight. It's about respect, pride, and the moment a janitor showed the world what strength really looks like. Before we dive in, tell me in the comments, where are you watching this from? For years, Marcus had worked quietly in that small-town gym, a place where dreams were built on sweat, pain, and ego. He wasn't there to fight or train. He was there to clean. Every night, after the last fighter left, Marcus mopped the same scuffed floors, picked up gloves left behind, and wiped blood from the mats without a word of complaint. No one ever asked about his past. They just saw the janitor. A man in worn sneakers, keeping to himself, humming old blues songs while sweeping under the bright cage lights. But behind that calm face was someone who had known struggle far deeper than any fighter in that gym. Years of being overlooked, spoken down to, and treated like background noise had taught him to stay quiet, but not weak. The MMA coach, Jake Turner, saw things differently. He was a man used to being the loudest in the room, the kind who mistook silence for submission. Every day, he barked orders, boasting about discipline and strength while mocking the man who kept his gym spotless. To him, Marcus wasn't a person, just part of the scenery. But fate has a way of humbling arrogance. And on one ordinary evening, long after the crowd had gone, a single moment of cruelty would force these two men into the same ring, not as coach and janitor, but as equals. What Jake didn't realize was that the man he was about to humiliate had already fought harder battles, ones that left scars no one could see. That night started like any other. The gym lights buzzed overhead, the smell of sweat and metal hanging in the air. Marcus was finishing up, pushing the mop across the mat while the last few fighters packed their gear. Jake Turner, the head coach, was in the corner, shouting instructions to a young trainee who could barely stand after a round. His voice carried across the gym, sharp, proud, and full of mockery. When the trainee stumbled, Jake's laughter echoed. "You fight like you clean," he barked. Then his eyes landed on Marcus. "Actually, maybe we should let the janitor show you how it's done." A few men chuckled. Marcus kept his head down, pretending not to hear. He'd learned that silence was sometimes the safest response. But Jake wasn't finished. He walked over, his steps heavy, the smirk on his face growing. "Come on, Marcus. You've been watching us for years. Ever wonder what it's like to be in the cage instead of sweeping around it?" Marcus looked up, tired but calm. "Just doing my job, sir." That should have been the end of it. But Jake wanted an audience. He grabbed a pair of gloves from the rack and tossed them at Marcus. "No, your job tonight is to step in here." The few people left stopped what they were doing. Phones came out. Someone whispered, "He's serious." Marcus shook his head. "I'm not here to fight." Jake stepped closer, his voice lower, taunting. "What's wrong? Scared you'll mess up your uniform?" Laughter filled the room again. Marcus felt his chest tighten. Not from fear, from the weight of a lifetime of moments just like this. Being underestimated, provoked, and disrespected. Every insult, every smirk, every time someone thought they could use him to prove a point. Then Jake shoved him. Hard. The room went still. Something inside Marcus shifted, that quiet patience he'd carried for years began to burn away. But he still turned to leave. "I don't want trouble," he said softly. Jake blocked his path. "Trouble found you," he sneered, grabbing Marcus by the arm and dragging him toward the cage. The few onlookers watched, unsure whether to stop it or record it. Most chose the latter. Marcus stood inside the ring for the first time, surrounded by laughter and flashing lights. Jake put on his gloves, circling like a predator who'd already won. "This is for fun," Jake said. "Let's show everyone how tough the janitor really is." Marcus stayed still, his hands low, eyes steady. Years of staying silent had taught him when to move and when to wait. Jake swung first, a fast jab meant to humiliate, not hurt. Marcus dodged. Another came, faster, angrier. He stepped back again, calm and quiet, while Jake's frustration grew. The laughter turned uneasy. Jake yelled, "Stop running," and threw one more wild punch. Marcus didn't move this time. His body reacted on instinct, precise, controlled, unstoppable. One hit. Jake fell before he even understood what happened. The room froze. The only sound was the dull thud of his body hitting the mat. Marcus stood over him, breathing steadily, eyes full of something deeper than anger, truth. No words. No gloating. Just silence, the kind that makes everyone confront what they just witnessed. The phones that once recorded for entertainment now captured something none of them expected: justice. And while Jake lay motionless, the world outside that gym was about to see the video and realize this wasn't just about a fight. It was about everything that fight represented. If you're still watching, hit that subscribe button. Stories like this deserve to be heard. The video spread faster than anyone expected. Within hours, it was everywhere. The moment Jake Turner, the celebrated MMA coach, was laid out cold by the man he'd humiliated. People replayed it again and again. One hit, one fall, one truth. But for Marcus, it wasn't victory. It was exposure. By the next morning, reporters camped outside the gym. Headlines twisted the story: "Coach attacked by janitor, unprovoked violence in local gym." None mentioned the insults, the shove, or the years of quiet disrespect. The world saw only a black man knocking out a white coach. And that was enough to feed the outrage. Marcus was fired that same day. No conversation. No defense. Just a phone call and a warning to stay away. The same men who once laughed in his face now refused to meet his eyes. His name became a headline, his face a target. Online, people debated his worth like he wasn't even human. He stayed home, blinds drawn, scrolling through the chaos. Every post cut deeper: he should have known his place. Thug in a janitor's uniform. It was as if the truth didn't matter anymore, only the narrative people wanted to believe. Then came the knock. Police. A complaint had been filed. Assault. Marcus stood in the doorway, heart pounding, realizing how quickly the system moved when someone like him was involved. The officers didn't care about the footage, the taunts, or the shove that started it all. They only saw the ending: a man of color standing over a white coach. At the station, flashes went off as cameras captured his arrest. The same image that once made people cheer now made others point and whisper. The world had turned upside down overnight. But even in that cold room, surrounded by judgment, Marcus held his head high. He'd spent years swallowing disrespect, but this time, he refused to shrink. He knew that hit wasn't about violence, it was about finally being seen. The irony was brutal. The man who preached strength and control had lost both, while the janitor he mocked showed what true power looked like: quiet, disciplined, earned through pain. Outside, protests were beginning. People who saw the full video shared it again and again. The truth was fighting to be heard. And as Marcus sat in that holding cell, hands folded, eyes steady, he realized something: this wasn't the end of his story. It was just the moment the world decided whether it would keep looking away or finally face what it had been ignoring all along. The question wasn't if he'd walk free. It was whether justice ever really did. The story didn't end in that holding cell. Within days, the full video surfaced, uncut, unedited, undeniable. It showed everything: the insults, the shove, the humiliation, and the one hit that flipped the power dynamic. The internet shifted. The same people who'd condemned Marcus began to see what really happened. Support poured in from around the country, from athletes, activists, and ordinary people who knew what it meant to be pushed too far and still blamed for reacting. The charges were dropped quietly, but the silence spoke volumes. No apology, no justice, just paperwork and a warning to move on. But Marcus couldn't move on. Not because he was bitter, but because he understood what the moment had revealed, how fast respect disappears when the color of your skin defines the narrative. Jake Turner's gym lost sponsors, and his reputation collapsed under the weight of his own arrogance. Yet Marcus never gloated. He didn't need to. His dignity had already said everything the world needed to hear. He found work at a community center soon after, training young fighters, not to throw punches, but to find purpose. To stand tall without hate. To fight battles that didn't need cages. And in that small gym, where sweat and struggle met again, he became something no one ever expected, a mentor, a voice of calm, a symbol of quiet strength. The video that once humiliated him became something greater. Teachers showed it in classrooms. Commentators used it to start conversations about race, respect, and the value of human dignity. Marcus didn't seek fame, but his story forced people to confront an uncomfortable truth, that racism isn't always loud. Sometimes, it hides behind laughter, jokes, or the power to make someone feel small. In the end, Marcus didn't just knock out a coach. He exposed a mindset. A system. A mirror of how society treats those it refuses to see. He went back to that same gym one day, not to fight, but to sweep again. Only this time, people greeted him with respect. The same broom, the same floor, but everything had changed. Because strength isn't just in fists. It's in restraint. In standing your ground when the world tells you to kneel. And maybe that's what we all need to ask ourselves. How many more people like Marcus have to prove their worth before we stop questioning it? If this story moved you, share it forward, leave your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that reveal the truth behind the headlines.